Welcome to the DRC, the Dad Rock Collective, for dads who rock. In this episode, you'll hear some rock dad advice on parenting.
Put on like death metal in the van driving to daycare.
Get some recording advice.
And I could not remember a note of what I had done.
Get some advice on what it takes to make it.
You got to go full bore. You got to be okay with living in the van for a year with your buddies.
And much, much more. The DRC, the Dad Rock Collective, for dads who rock. In this episode, we're going to be talking to Steven Collicutt, an old friend of mine, an excellent dad, great musician, and an all-around really good guy. He's been pretty busy this past couple of years, not only with fatherhood, but also creating a really great album, nominated for a 2020 PEI Music Award, Towerwood. So without further ado, here's Steve Collicutt talking about life as a dad and as a dad rocker.
Do you believe? All right. So, hey, man, how's it going?
Good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you, too. Why don't we just start out by introducing yourself?
Steve Collicutt, your old pal.
Yeah. We played in bands together for a long time.
Bands, yeah, starting almost 30 years ago, nearly. We played in a band together. We started. Yeah, and so I just a rocker guy, metal dad.
Yeah, metal dad. That's right. And I guess one of the reasons why we're talking today is, you know what? There's a really great example of it right behind you. Those little dinosaurs. You know, you get all your guitar gear all around you, all your cool rock gear, and right there is your kids' pictures. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah. They go well together. I'm missing a guitar here that actually my kid did the finishing for, did the painting on. I should have brought it here, but it's not there. It's upstairs. But it would have fit in well beside all of these.
Definitely another time then.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll do a gear review. Honestly,
Your last question?
Oh yeah. No, I guess just tell me a bit about your family, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, no problem, man. I got got 2 kids, 2 boys, and my lovely wife's suburban lifestyle with a little bit of rock speckled in, you know.
Nice. Do they play music? Are they showing any interest in music?
Yeah, a bit. They both have, and then I've never pushed it. I just put stuff around and hope that they'll use it. So There's a guitar always sitting in a stand. If they want to use it, that's okay. You can use this amp anytime you want. And there's a drum kit if you want to play these drums anytime you want. And the piano, I find I hear them on the drums and the piano the most. But my youngest son seems to really be taking to guitar, but they're not really learning. They just more like to play around with them,
kind of
jack them up a little bit, or run around and act like rock stars and do the Chuck Berry dance with the guitar in their hand and stuff, tripping around.
All right.
So
that's awesome, though. Yeah. Do you try and hone their music listening? Like, do you try and get them to listen to good music, or?
Absolutely. Well, I play my stuff around them, and it's interesting. They didn't catch it because I was playing. So, I would play, I'm going to play some classics. I'm going to make sure that they hear some of that stuff. They grow up here and, they're going to hear some like AC/DC, and they got to hear some Led Zeppelin and some Sabbath. They got to come out of the gate like that. And sure, I played that, but it didn't catch it all, Baby Shark. And stuff like that caught until they started getting into shows, and they started hearing these same songs in shows. And suddenly then they were like, I want to hear the Thor song. And it would be like, you mean the Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin? Yeah, Thor song. So now they got into rock, but they still got into it their own way. My youngest, as soon as he was pretty well born, with the louder and the heavier the music, he would be like always like dancing just as a little baby, and he loved the hard stuff. Even when he knew 1 or 2 words, sometimes I would like try to freak the kids out. I'd put on like death metal in the van driving to daycare. It'd be, and one would be like, Dad, what is this? And the other one would be like, I like this, and he's still, I've never made him submit yet. He's always like, yeah, I like this. And he gets right into it pretty good. So the other one gets a little freaked out. He says, I listen to the loudest music of anyone in the world. He always tells me that.
So I have to stop it here for a second. I asked Steve about the influences of his kids on his music, and his answer really surprised me. And also, if you're enjoying this, please hit that like button.
Old Town Road, I like that song.
Old Town Road, I like that song.
And that came in through my 7-year-old. I never even knew who that artist. I don't even know who it is now. I just know Billy Ray Cyrus is a part of it. Hell of a song, right? He brings home these catchy ones sometimes, and
funny.
So it goes both ways.
And that right there is a true dad rocker.
Did you have a rock and roll dream or like a rock dream when you were young? Did you have any dream like that?
Oh yeah, I probably like everyone else who's a rocker. I remember. I don't know how old I would have been, 1988 maybe, something like that, and seeing like Motley Crue Wild Side video, and they're playing live, and Tommy Lee does that flipping the drums, and I was like, I got to do that. That is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. They're the coolest dudes I've ever seen, And so I wanted to do whatever it was they were doing. I mean, I liked music, but this is connecting coolness with music. And so that kind of lit a fire under my ass. I mean, it took years until I actually got playing. But at that moment, a friend of mine, we said, man, we should try to start a band.
We're starting a band, and you're in it.
And well, what do you got to do? Well, I guess you got to get like equipment or something. You got to learn how to play. You got to learn how to play. Well, why don't you just be the singer then? Who will play guitar? And so it was a bit ridiculous. And, I think there was eventually a practice or something in my garage, and there was one piece of equipment, an amplifier that was like this big. It came from Sears. It had like the 3-inch speaker. And but yeah, I wanted to be a rock. I just wanted to be one of those guys. I just thought, holy shit, that's the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen. So yeah, that's it.
Well, obviously, those dreams are only meant for very select few, right? Did you have that moment where you're like, I'm not gonna be Motley Crue,
Yeah, I remember where I lived and when I had decided that, where I was living at the time. I was living in an apartment in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and just kind of clued in, that's not where this is gonna land. But also, like, I'm not sure I knew what I wanted. I just wanted to be like those guys. But the more I found out about those guys, there was parts that were pretty darn appealing and some parts that weren't all that appealing. I think to make it in music, you got to go full bore. You got to be okay with living in the van for a year with your buddies. But I had experienced some level of comfort that wasn't debauchery and living with five buddies in a 1-bedroom apartment kind of thing. You got to be focused, and I wasn't as focused by that point, I think, as one would need to be if you're going to go with it. And I acknowledged that. And it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was really just a shifting of what you're expecting to get back from music. It didn't change my view of loving music or anything. It was just, what am I looking to get out of this? So there was a bit of some doors are closed, and sure, but that's okay. I still got my guitar and I could still play, and so it didn't really bother me that much, really, at the time.
How did you keep music alive from then on?
Well, I just played. I played it a lot at home. I got into recording. I learned a little bit about recording at that time. I just did what I could do. I went to school around that time as well. So I remember I just was coming up with a pile of ideas at the time and thinking, gee, if I had a band, this would actually be a good time. I'd have a lot of songs.
Awesome.
But it has morphed over the years. As soon as I had some free time, it went into just all the recording and stuff went away for almost 10 years. And it was just play. And that was play with other people. I used to jam a few times a week with friends, just get drunk and jam and rock, and it's as fun as it was more fun than some shows I played, for sure.
Right. What about when family came along?
That definitely changed things. When I had my first kid, I was in a band, a gigging band at the time, and my band was concerned about, what's the impact. And I was like, oh no, probably wouldn't be a big deal. I'm just going to take a few weeks off. I think I said I wanted to take like a month or 5 weeks. They didn't like that, but I did go back to it, right back to it. Didn't miss a beat. It was okay with my first child for a while, and plus he was so little, he was still very attached to his mother.
Right.
Like I was more of a support her type thing, and you could call in backup, call in the grandmother, so you can run off and do a gig, And at that time, I was still, I'd still be drinking at the gigs. But over time, when my second kid came on, that changed it entirely. It became hard at that point.
Right.
Going to rehearsal became hard. Doing shows became hard. Trying to recover from doing shows, the booze kind of got put back up on the shelf. I was starting to struggle a little bit to get through it. I was new to it though too.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sleeping nearly enough. You show up to a gig and you haven't slept in a week. You're hauling your gear up. It throws it off a little. And then having worked through the toughness of that period, and then the frustration of putting so much work into something and having it fall apart. After that, I just went dormant. If you're used to just being able to pick up a guitar any moment you feel like it and create and do everything you feel like it, and then suddenly you have to, I don't know how to say it, kind of claw your way to be able to touch it. It's not the path of resistance is it's a bit of a stronger resistance between you and your instrument. And it's like fighting a tide, and sometimes the guitar just gets left on the wall. And in my case, eventually it ended up, when my son was maybe 1 or 2, it got left on the wall for probably, I might have picked it up 3 times that year. And I was literally losing the ability to play.
I find it interesting that, you go through this whole time and you go through this struggle, you get to this point where the struggle is just too much. There's too much resistance. You give it up. And then as soon as you decide to commit to that, for me, you create the best piece of work, ever. Award nominated. So Towerwood.
Thanks, man.
Well, I hope you're enjoying this interview. I know I had a great time doing it, and I think Steve did as well. But I had to cut it into 2. It was kind of longer than I thought. So this is part A, and the next video will be part B, where Steve talks about Towerwood, the recording process, and a few other little fun things. So look for that. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
It wouldn't have happened if I wasn't a dad. I've recorded tons of demos over the years, but I never actually finished anything. Just played a ton of music, but I don't have any music to leave behind. I'm going to record an album, and I had no idea how I was going to do that. I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. There's no way. But I'll just find a way.